Ryan Bomberger is a multi-award-winning creative professional journalist, factivist, and I said that word right, he'll be talking more about that, a factivist, and co-founder of Life-Affirming Radiance Foundation. Here's part of his story. He was conceived in rape, yet his birth mom courageously gave him the beautiful gift of adoption. He grew up in a loving Christian multiracial family of 15, of which 10 were adopted. He's the author of the newly released book, Not Equal: Civil Rights Gone Wrong, a work of fearless journalism and powerfully creative visuals that address abortion, Planned Parenthood, adoption, Black Lives Matter, LGBT and judicial activism, and the war on common sense. He's always one of our favorites here at the Values Voters Summit. Let's give you a real quick overview of his outstanding outreach. Let's look at the monitors together.
This country was founded on the belief that what sets us apart, race, language, religion, sexual orientation, should not dissolve what binds us.
The United States of America did not create religious liberty. Religious liberty created the United States of America.
Our Democratic Party that championed civil rights and voting rights.
It was, in fact, Republicans of their day who worked to pass the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments, securing for African Americans deliverance from slavery, equal protection under the law, and the right to vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ryan Bomberger.
Deserve that yet. You haven't heard what I had to say yet. You might want to wait for a minute. I love Colonel Allen West, Bobby Jindal. Can we just get a hand to some great conservatives there? Love them. Thank you, Family Research Council, for gathering some amazing factivists in this room. I am honored to be with you. You know, people are often praised for getting involved in situations, getting involved as activists, getting involved in a cause. It's laudable that people choose action over apathy, but we're a society that doesn't want to be bothered by the facts because they too often get in the way of our emotions. So what we need, as you can see, I'll just give you a second here. Read with me. You are a literate group. That's awesome. That was a literate group. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So we do need less activism and more factivism. It's not that it's devoid of emotion. We have the emotional, but we also have the evidential. And so I want to do an exercise, if that's okay, in some fact checking. Is that okay? Okay. Since mainstream media isn't here, they normally do the fact checking. Of course, they fact check themselves, which is awesome. But I'm going to give you some statements, and some of them will be facts, and some of them will be, well, we'll call them either a fact or a Hillary, which would mean what? Okay, good, you got it. Woo, sharp people. So here's the first one. And you have to call it out, by the way, okay? So I believe in audience participation. I am Asian. Oh, wait, no, you call out whether it's a fact or a Hillary. I am Asian. Woo, you got it. That was easy, I'm actually Swedish. You laugh, thank you. Hey, I'm half white. I could be Swedish. If I self-identify as Swedish, then I am. Okay, no, that's not your time to call out a Hillary. I was adopted into a family of 15, 10 of us were adopted. And you know, growing up in an experience like that with a multiracial family, multi-ethnic family, you learn that the stuff that binds you is not color, is not culture. The strongest stuff that binds you is love. So I thank God for that experience. So here's our next one, our next fact check. Remember fact or Hillary, which some of you are a little overzealous with that. Okay, here we go. Democrats were responsible for passing the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote. Good, good. There are obviously no mainstream media journalists in here because they don't quite understand this. The 19th Amendment actually was originally introduced by a Republican lawmaker, Aaron Sargent, who introduced it in 1878. For some reason, it took 40 years to pass it. In fact, the Democrat-controlled Congress, the 65th Congress, refused to vote on it. So it took a 66th Congress, which was then controlled by Republicans, who passed that. And the margin in which Republicans passed the 19th Amendment was far larger than Democrats. And I think that margin was 91% to 60%. So anytime mainstream media or Democrats try to tell you that they are the party of women, they're the party of women's rights, just remind them that they weren't, thank you, that they weren't there for women for the 19th Amendment overwhelmingly. Here's one last one, okay? Only, remember fact or? Got it. Only 260 deaths occurred in 1957 from abortions, whether they were legal or illegal. Actually, it's a fact. Planned Parenthood's own medical director, Dr. Mary Calderon, back in 1959, it was a health conference held by Planned Parenthood, had this to say about abortion, quote, in 1957, there were only 260 deaths in the whole country attributed to abortions of any kind. Call them what you will, abortionists or anything else, they are still physicians. They must be doing a pretty good job if the death rate is as low as it is. Don't you love when Planned Parenthood debunks its own lies? So yes, Planned Parenthood debunks its own BS, which, by the way, is bogus stuff. So the next time you hear a pro-abortion activist shouting, hashtag, we won't go back, just tell them to hang up their hangers. And so when it comes to abortion activists, they're so proud of how far we've come as a country. They're proud that abortion, in their estimation, has leveled the playing field. They're proud that some of the greatest racial disparities exist in an industry that kills for a living. In a city that serves as a headquarters for Planned Parenthood, which is New York City, more black babies are aborted than born alive. For every 1,000 born alive, 1,100 are aborted. Among whites, for every 1,000 born alive, 258 are aborted. And among Hispanics, for every 1,000 born alive, 557 are aborted. The black community is the only demographic where more induced deaths occur than births. And they want to celebrate this as reproductive justice. So there's a lot of talk about vulnerable communities being targets of the more powerful. But there is no group more vulnerable and less powerful than the unborn. So here we have a society that, for some reason, doesn't seem to have any issue when senseless violence is used against the weak and the defenseless, especially if it's Hillary Clinton's PR machine, aka Planned Parenthood. As long as they can profit from it, those who consider themselves social justice warriors are just fine with it. So what I've realized when David Daleiden and Center for Medical Progress released these excellent undercover videos, can you just give a hand? That whole effort was excellent undercover journalism. But I never realized over the past year, 2 years, I didn't realize the affinity that mainstream media had for martial arts, because they have employed the most insane journalistic jujitsu in order to justify and defend America's largest abortion chain. So when these videos came out, what did mainstream media do? They rush in to defend big abortion. And it's interesting because it's about one of the only times you'll find MSM, mainstream media, defending capitalism and corporate America. Yes, Planned Parenthood is an exercise, an evil exercise, but it is an exercise in capitalism. And then they cry, I love this, they cried or were decrying the fact that the videos were highly edited. Anybody hear them make that excuse? They're highly edited, highly edited. We have a name for video that is highly edited. What do we call it? News. I write about America's biggest hoax, Planned Parenthood, in my new book, Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong. And as I mentioned, there is a book signing at 3 p.m., so all you have to do is go over the river and through the woods and up a few flights of stairs, and you'll get there. Don't try to use GPS, it doesn't work in the building. But I would love to be able to connect with you there. But this is my hope. One day our nation will look back and wonder how so many were duped for so long by planned propaganda. One day our collective soul will mourn for the millions and millions of lives that were crushed by the violent social injustice of abortion. And one day, because truth is relentless and freeing, big abortion will be heavily edited out of our society. Can I get an amen? Yes. Now here's, we talk about the comfortable social issues here, right? The easy stuff. But nowhere is victimhood more invoked than in the pro-abortion LGBTQ activist community. In the debate about binary biological gender, our nation is embroiled in a false debate about bathrooms. Everyone has access to bathrooms. In denouncing recent common sense legislation, LGBTQ XYZ organizations promote the lie that there is an epidemic of violence, that there's an epidemic of murder against transgender, and I put that in quotes, individuals, blaming this rash of violence on hate. All homicides are tragic. Every loss of life is tragic. So I just need to emphasize that. Last time I checked, homicides weren't committed in the name of love. So I hate when they always brand these things as hate. But we're talking about 11 people they identify as transgender that were killed in 2014. 11. That year, according to the FBI, 11,961 homicides were committed that year. So this is where factivism comes into play. That's 0.1% of all homicides, which exactly matches transgender representation in the population. So it's not some sort of epidemic. Of course, there is no data that says why these human beings were killed or who killed them, but LGBT media touts that this number, 11, actually doubled in 2015, which is interesting because this is what activists do. There actually isn't homicide data published yet from the FBI for 2015. But see, what they do is they cite each other. So one LGBT group cites the other, cites the other, cites the other, and where did it originate? Out of thin air. The problem is, just like with pro-abortion radicals, it's never about the truth. It's advancing the agenda no matter the lie. It's about activism, not factivism. So here we have the Obama administration desperately trying to force this incredible nation into having reassignment surgery. Forget the Constitution. Fundamentally transforming America requires ignoring the very thing that makes the United States great: law, order, and a rich cultural heritage of religious freedom and liberty that holds these truths to be self-evident. Here's the thing: if we arbitrarily erase gender distinctions, it's biological women, as if women need a qualifier, but it's biological women who will always be harmed the most. I mean, doesn't fighting for women's rights become completely moot if gender doesn't matter? If anyone can be a woman like Bruce Jenner, who has exchanged his manhood for faux femininity, why do we need liberal feminism? Since LGBT activists want to pretend that biological binary gender is just a figment of our imagination, let's just do away with all gender-divided sports. North Carolina's governor, who I believe spoke here yesterday, amazing man, Pat McCrory, didn't cower in fear like some other Republican governors when he signed his state's HB 2. His state is feeling the furious swings of corporate bullies. I'm particularly amused by the NBA's withdrawal of the All-Star game from the pro-transgender city of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a beautiful city, love the city. The NBA is all about inclusion, right? They think it's discrimination to distinguish between male and female genders. I just want to say this: if gender is merely a perception issue, then please, NBA, by all means, stop segregating your men's and women's teams. Okay? Mix it all up. Let them play as one. And if they're not progressive enough to mix them together, I suggest, how about you have the Chicago Sky, who many of you are probably saying, what is that? It's actually a WNBA team. But the Chicago Sky play the Chicago Bulls. I would suggest that there will be a pretty understood outcome. This isn't sexism. It's realism. It's factivism. My amazing wife, Bethany, amazing, love her like crazy. She's a co-founder of the Radiance Foundation. She and I are equal but we're not the same. Okay? She has a womb, I don't. And I will tell you that I'm perfectly okay with that. Had an appendectomy, I thought I was gonna die. They told me it was about 100th of the pain that a woman goes through, so I'm really good. Women are the stronger sex. That's just the truth. She gave birth to our awesome children, 3 of our 4. Our fourth one, our youngest one, was an incredible gift. His name is Justice, and he was adopted. So she gets the Trophy of Strength Award. I don't even have to want to go through that. The point is, we're different, and no amount of political activism will change that. Transgenderism, one facet of LGBTQ political activism, has no interest in existing guaranteed constitutional rights, in biology, and in common sense. I write about this in my book, Not Equal. It's not popular to counter our culture's message. It's not popular to be countercultural at all, but I'm not driven by popularity. I'm driven by principle. And I hope all of you in this room are as well. Now, here's the thing. This is where love and tolerance, we can distinguish the two of them. Because activism says male and female are interchangeable. Factivism says, sorry, they're not. And here's, I want you to, if there aren't many takeaways from this, I hope you take this away from what I'm saying. Love illuminates the truth, okay, and lifts people out of their circumstances. Tolerance keeps people where they are and pretends that there are no circumstances. Now, I just want to show you a little blip about a really easy topic to talk about. If you'll just roll that short little clip. How many of you like talking about race? It's the easiest topic possible. But as that video illustrated, I just want to kind of illustrate it right now. Just by calling out, give me some of the names of black individuals who were harmed or killed by police that you've seen in reports. Freddie Gray, who else? Michael Brown, yeah, Alton Sterling. Okay, now name some white people who were killed by police. Yes, exactly, that's my point. Mainstream media has a particular racial narrative that they want to put out there. According to the Washington Post, there's a database of those who were killed by police, and this is whether it was justified or not, but there was a total of 990. Of those, 258 were black individuals, 494 were white. 25% of them were black, 49% of them were white. And yet mainstream media wants to pretend that there's some rash of violence against black individuals. It's tragic. No one should ever be at the wrong end of a gun. But quite honestly, we all make choices in life, and sometimes we make some really bad choices. And so, that number too, I just want to kind of put it into context. Of the 990 people who were killed by police officers in the line of duty, 79% of them were armed with a deadly weapon. Now, this is from the Washington Post and their database that they continue to keep up. So here's my whole issue with this, because as a Christian, I want to look at this situation from a biblical standpoint. One, we love one another, but what we can't do is love the lie. And it troubles me that so many evangelical organizations and individuals are actually embracing the Black Lives Matter movement. There's got to be a better way to deal with racial injustice or any kind of injustice than to embrace a fundamentally dishonest, racially divisive, Marxist political movement. So, now I wrote a letter recently. You can go to www.radiance.life and read this letter that I've written to Colin Kaepernick. You may have heard of his name. Anybody, you've heard of him? Okay. All right, don't be so happy. He and I actually have a lot in common. Clearly not our bank accounts. I have way more money than he does. If only. The amount of good I could do with that money. Anyway, he's biracial. I am too. He was transracially adopted. I was too. Adoption unleashed purpose in his life, and I love that that is the reality that he experienced. It's the reality that I experienced. He doesn't want to stand during the national anthem. Okay, that's his choice. That's the beauty of the First Amendment. This isn't about denying him free speech, which conservatives defend passionately, by the way. In fact, if you look at the Democrat Party platform, I just want to throw this out there. Do you know how many times you see the word free speech or First Amendment in the Democrat Party platform of this year? 0. There you go, big fat 0. Gee, I wonder why. So he's entitled to believe what he wants and unfortunately spew it to millions of Americans, especially young kids. And sadly, professional athletes today have more sway than pastors. So it matters what he says. But that's why we have to keep speaking the truth to break through. But here's the tragedy. He and I experienced life because we had courageous birth moms who chose life. There are millions who don't get that chance. And so he will stand for a perceived injustice, for a false racial narrative, but he won't stand for the 3,000 a day that are killed unjustly. Their bodies aren't in the street. Their bodies are dumped down drains and stuffed into bio-waste bags. So many who don't get the same chance as he and I to love and be loved. It's amazing to me that he won't stand up for that. And this is, one of these scriptures really just speaks to me. Ephesians 4:14 says, "Then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth." This is exactly what's happening today. We hear lots of accusations and blame, but few calls for acts of forgiveness, like we saw after the massacre in South Carolina, the church in South Carolina. None of these issues our culture grapples with can experience healing without forgiveness, but we can tackle them together as one human race. Can I get an amen? Today's activism is often reckless and baseless, perpetuating pain and division and compelling people to act without facts. I always want to be on the right side of truth. Ephesians 5:11, which is the foundational verse for the Radiance Foundation, says this: "Have nothing to do with the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them." Expose them. These are the words that challenge me to be a factivist. No matter the inconvenient or unwanted, people don't want to hear the facts, but no matter how inconvenient it may be, it is incumbent upon us to actually speak those truths. So we need less activism. Let me hear you say it. Less activism. More factivism. Say it like you mean it. Less activism. More factivism. Now, I would love to meet you in the exhibit hall at 3 p.m. so that we can help foster a movement of more factivists. Silence, I really want to encourage you. I don't care whether you're 10 or you're approaching 100. Silence on these cultural shifting issues only allows people to remain oppressed. There is freedom, but we have to be willing to find it beyond the emotion, rooted deeply in a truth that will work relentlessly and peacefully to set people free. Thank you. God bless.
It's gonna be a long